So today is 27th of April. Let's begin with our discussion of the Hindu analysis. So let's start with the first important news for today. It's about India and New Zealand signing an FTA today. So this is the FTA to be signed on April 27, and this deal is going to provide 100% duty-free on our Indian exports. So this has been a very important FTA. In fact, this has been one of the fastest FTAs that India negotiated. Last year in March 2025, this negotiation between India and New Zealand started, and by December we had concluded everything, and now we are going to sign it. So what does this say? India and New Zealand will today sign a free trade agreement that will remove tariffs on 100% of India's export to New Zealand. And for New Zealand, what is happening? For New Zealand, either sharply reduce or remove tariffs on 95% of current imports from New Zealand. So good news for our exporters is that 100% of our tariff is going to be done away with. Exporters will be able to export everything duty free on all the tariff lines. Tariff lines are basically all the categories of exports that we are doing. So ideally it was like till last year it was somewhere around 10%, and on an average some 2.2%. 2.2% of tariff the exporters had to pay, and now this has been reduced. Now this has been made what? Completely duty free, 100% duty free. So this is a very welcoming move. This was the fastest, one of the fastest negotiated deals that I already told you. And New Zealand is also benefiting. India is also benefiting. India's exporters are benefiting a lot. So if we talk about our exports, so a lot of things we export to New Zealand, like there are refined petroleum products that we export. Then there is pharmaceuticals that we export. Then there are machinery and engineered goods. So these are the things that we export. So all this will now be duty free. And India has offered New Zealand exporters access in 70% of the tariff lines, 70% of the categories. And in these 70% of the categories, 30% of these categories will see tariffs being removed immediately, while the rest will see a phased removal or reductions. So we have also opened up our markets. New Zealand is getting market access to the huge market of India that we already have. So New Zealand is getting access to that, and we have opened 70% of our market has been open to New Zealand. There are certain exemptions, we'll talk about that, because there are some sensitive areas that we have in India. So other than that, 70% of the categories have been opened, 70% of the market access has been opened, and out of the 70%, 30% of the tariff lines are either going to be removed immediately or they will see a phased removal. So New Zealand is also going to benefit, and India is also going to benefit out of this FTA. Okay, and there is a future benefit clause also that will be invoked. This again is important. A future benefit clause, meaning that let's say in the near future India again signs an FTA with some other country and it starts offering more benefits to that country. For example, it starts offering more benefits to that country in some sectors like the wine sector or any other sector, then this is going to apply to New Zealand also. Future benefits are going to apply to New Zealand also if India is going to favor some other nation. So it's a future benefits clause. It's like the most favored nation clause. So if we are going to sign an FTA, if we are going to sign a deal with any other country where we are going to give them a lot of, reduction or more reductions than what we are offering to New Zealand at the moment in certain sectors, then that is going to automatically apply to New Zealand also. So this is to strengthen the cooperation between both the countries, the trust, the trust and economic growth and everything, bilateral relations. So for that we have this future benefit clause also. Okay. Now, other than this, so when we talk about FTAs are not just about tariff reductions on goods, it is also about services, it is also about the mobility of professionals and students. And to mark, how important this FTA is, it is for the first time that New Zealand has actually signed something or actually added an annex, a section that is on the mobility of students and professionals. So it has allowed Indian students to work up to 20 hours per week while studying in New Zealand. So this is for the first time that New Zealand has offered such a deal to any country, and this is going to help Indian students a lot because this will help them with their financial freedom. So while they are studying, they can also work for up to 20 hours a week. And not just that, now after they have completed their study, post that also they will be given a work visa. And if we talk about the visas, then a quota of 5,000 visas 5,000 visas has been kept for skilled work, Indian skilled professionals, both in the traditional category as well as in the modern category. In the traditional professional category, we have Ayush practitioners, yoga instructors, chefs and music teachers, and in the modern category we will have IT, engineering, healthcare, education and construction. So this basically is telling us that the mobility of students and professionals has also been taken into consideration. 100% tariff reduction on exports has been provided. Other than that, a quota has been provided, like while working also students can, while studying also students can work, and after they have completed their studies, post that they can definitely work, and a quota of 5,000 visas has been kept exclusively for Indian skilled professionals, both in the traditional sector as well as in the modern sector. Okay. Now, if we look at the current trade situation, like why is it so important for India to sign such a deal with New Zealand? So we'll have to see that our imports and exports both have gone up in the past few years. So India's export to New Zealand grew 32.1% in 2024-25, and imports from New Zealand also grew 75.2% from $587.1 million over the same period. So this is some data. If you can memorize this, please do. So you can quote this in your answers and everything. So this is just to highlight that the growth has been important. In the past 1 or 2 years, we have seen exports also going up, we have seen imports also going up, and that's why it's important that these countries come together and work on their tariff reduction so that both the countries can benefit. India can also benefit and New Zealand can also benefit. Now, I told you that there are certain exemptions that have not been included in the FTA. So first and foremost are dairy products. India has not opened its dairy market to New Zealand. However, our imports, when we talk about imports from New Zealand, a lot of dairy is imported from New Zealand, dairy products, but our sector is not open to New Zealand because it's a very sensitive sector. India works on, very largely it protects its agriculture sector and its dairy sector, and we hardly open this. This is actually an exemption in most of the FTAs that you will see, that dairy sector is kept out of it because it's a highly subsidized sector, it's a very sensitive sector, so we have to take certain things in mind. We have to take care of our small and marginalized people who are working in this area. Then animal products other than sheep meat, so animal products have been kept out of it, vegetable products have been kept out of it, arms and ammunition, gems and jewelry, copper, aluminium and their products. So these are the exemptions given in our FTA. Other than this, all the other sectors, or like 70% of something of our tariff lines are now open for the New Zealand market. So that is open. However, there are certain exemptions. These are the exemptions. Okay. But this is a very important deal because it was concluded in a very short span of time, clearly highlighting the trust that both the nations have in each other, because there wasn't a lot of back and forth. It was very closely and very, very clearly negotiated, and we were able to conclude everything very easily. So this is about the first news. Now moving on to the second article for today, this talks about some heat islands and thermal hotspots. So it's about Delhi, where implementation of heat action plan is going to take place, and the focus is on thermal hotspots. Now these terms become important for us. What is the thermal hotspot? What is the urban heat island effect? Why is it so important? Why is heat rising so much in the country? Why is it rising in the northern plains of the country? So these are certain questions that are important for our examination. So a heat action plan is going to be implemented for 2026, and the government said that it had went ahead. It conducted certain surveys and it highlighted that there are some thermal hotspots which the city is going to be focusing on, and some densely populated areas are also experiencing pronounced heat island effects. Now let's start with the first questions first, like why is the heat increasing? So we know that all records of heat are being broken. Our northern parts of the country are extremely hot at the moment, and it's even increasing. So this year is also a super El Nino year. We have already discussed El Nino, super El Nino in detail. You can go ahead and check that video out. But these things are going to intensify. Heat is going to increase. Even the nights are very hot because of the urban heat island effect. All these things are there. And right now a heat dome has also formed. A heat dome has also formed over the northern plains of India, the Indo-Gangetic plain, the northern plains of India, because there is very little or basically an absence of the western disturbances also at the moment. So nothing is coming up to actually break this heat dome category. Heat dome is actually a lid that has been formed over the northern plains, and it's actually trapping all the hot air within it. So hot air is supposed to rise up, form clouds and give rain, right? And this is supposed to bring the temperature down, but this is not happening at the moment because there is a dome, a heat dome that has been formed on our northern plains, and this is a high pressure area basically, and usually a heat dome is formed because we are at the descending branch of the Hadley cell. But what's happening? Normally this heat dome is broken by the western disturbances. Some sort of cool air comes in, some sort of rain happens, but right now we are seeing an absence of the western disturbance. We are seeing very weak western disturbance, because of which there is a pronounced heat dome, and all this hot air is trapped at the moment. It is not able to rise up and give, form clouds and then give rise to rain. So this heat dome condition is already there. El Nino, super El Nino is already there. So heat is intensifying. Okay, heat is intensifying. And now we are also experiencing heat island effects. Heat island. Now what is the urban heat island? Urban areas basically when they start becoming hotter than the surrounding areas, than the surrounding rural areas, because of the absence of trees, because of the presence of more concrete, more asphalt. That's why what starts happening, that these start storing more and more heat. The concrete starts storing more and more heat, and that's why the temperature starts rising. In the rural areas, we have a lot of vegetation. There's a lot of afforestation, trees and everything, which is sort of found in lesser quantities when we talk about the urban areas. So those urban areas where it's basically devoid of vegetation, and there's a lot of concrete, there are like many tall buildings, there's urban canopy of tall buildings that has been created. So this urban heat island effect starts coming in, wherein the urban areas become hotter than their nearby cooler areas, because they are devoid of vegetation. There is there's a lot of deforestation, and because of the presence of concrete and asphalt. They basically absorb heat. Okay, they absorb heat during the day, and then during the night these materials, they start slowly releasing that heat. That's why the days definitely are hotter, but the nights are also hotter. In these urban areas, the nights are also hotter, because all the heat that was absorbed by these building materials, by these concrete, by the asphalt, it's actually going to be released very slowly. So days are also hot, nights are also hot. So this is a heat island that is created. The entire urban area becomes a heat island, and within that heat island also, let's say within that heat island also, there are certain hotspots, certain areas, certain closely, densely populated areas which start acting as the thermal hotspots. Thermal hotspots, which will be the very hot regions within that entire urban heat island also. Why? Because there could be poor ventilation, then there could be a lot of concrete that has been used, they could be very densely populated, they could be devoid of vegetation, anything can happen. So certain areas, small densely packed areas, are going to be present where a lot of heat will be stored in those regions, and that will be our thermal hotspot. So the article also says that the Delhi government has identified these thermal hotspots, and they are going to be implementing this heat action plan even more effectively in these hotspots. So the schools could be closed, ORS could be given, hydration camps could be there. These different things can happen. Shade could be provided, because these are hotspots. And the heat keeps on increasing. The heat keeps on increasing because there's a lot of concrete that is being used. Then a lot of waste, a lot of things that are being generated, like more heat. We start using ACs more. Then more energy is generated. This in turn is going to, create the increase the heat in the surrounding areas again. So it's like a vicious cycle. That there's more heat. We are using more of air conditioners. Then it is going to increase the surrounding areas temperature, and in turn we are going to use more air conditioners. So it's like a deadlock. It's like a vicious cycle. So these things happen in a more pronounced manner in the urban areas, and that's why these urban areas, they start experiencing the heat island effect. Okay, is this clear? Is there any doubt? All right. So because of this, there is going to be this heat action plan, but these terms, as I told you, are important for us: thermal hotspots, urban heat island, and why are all these things happening. Moving on to the next important article. This also is an interesting article. It's about cyborg botany. Cyborg botany. Now these are very important terms. Again, they can be simply asked in a statement format in UPSC prelims examination, that this statement recently seen in news is associated with which of the following. So it's a very interesting concept. It's in a research phase, but when this comes out to be true in the near future, it is going to change a lot of things. So what is this? Cyborg botany simply means that we are trying to turn plants. We are trying to turn plants into circuit boards. We are turning plants into living electronic systems by embedding conductive materials inside them so that they can sense, respond, and interact like devices. Now this might sound heavy, but it is not. So cyborg botany simply is making use of plants like machines also, that they start conducting electricity as well, and they start sensing the environment. Like they already sense the environment. Plants already are very sensitive to the surrounding areas. They are sensitive to pollution, they are sensitive to touch, they are sensitive to a lot of things, but they are not able to communicate this to the humans, right? They are not able to communicate this to the farmers. So they are trying to convert these plants into electronic devices, that once they sense some things, they can also communicate it to the humans. Now, how is that going to happen? So that simply will happen by making use of conductive materials. Now what happens in a plant? In a plant there is a movement of food, nutrients and water, correct? There's phloem and xylem. Phloem is for our food and nutrients, and xylem is for our water. Conducting tissues, we have xylem for water. Now xylem picks up this water and it spreads it, or it transports it to all parts of the plant, right? Now with water, along with water, how will we actually convert it into a circuit board? Along with water, we are going to send in a conductive material also. Conductive material, a conductor basically that will be able to conduct electricity. Electricity will be able to pass through it. So along with water, we are going to send a conductive material. So plant is going to pick up the water. Along with the water, conducting material will also be picked up. It will be transported to all parts of the plant. Now once the water is absorbed, what will be left behind? The conductive material, the path or the mesh that will be created by this conductive material, right? Because the material will settle down. It will settle down in different parts of the plant, and a mesh like structure will be formed, a network like structure will be formed. And this in turn is going to be used to transfer electricity, or this will basically make use of transferring signals or sensors from the plants to the outside environment. So we are making use of conducting materials. Now how is this going to help us? It is actually going to help us in multiple ways. It's like plants will be able to talk to humans in their own manner, of course, in the language of these signals, that if let's say there is certain deficiency in the plant, or if the plant requires water. Now many a times what happens, that we have to rely on visual inputs. Once you start seeing that the leaves are now becoming yellow, or something else is happening, or the areas are becoming dry, the leaves are becoming dry, we need to water it, or there might be some other sort of deficiency. So basically we are relying on visual inputs, and many a time those visual symptoms, they occur once a lot of damage has already happened. Symptoms do not occur in the initial stages. So it will be like a situation wherein the plants in the initial stages itself can send certain signals to the outside environment, and the humans can pick up on that, and we can realize early in the scenario itself that there's a nutrient deficiency, or there's water deficiency, or there's a particular or this plant is particularly sensitive to these kinds of nutrients, anything of that sort. And because this will be able to happen only once signals can be conducted, and they in turn are going to be connected to certain computing devices, and a lot of other things can happen. A lot of interaction, a modified human plant interaction can take place, and all this will be able to take place once we start using conducting material inside the plants. Okay. So the benefits, as I already told you, they are living environmental sensors. Plants already are environmental sensors. They are sensitive to pollution. They are sensitive to a lot of other things. So we are able to identify damage once it has already been caused. But these sensors, if they are connected to computing devices, we'll be able to know beforehand that certain things are happening in the surrounding, or the plant is trying to communicate to us in a different manner. So all this will be made possible by Cyborg botany. Okay, smart agriculture, this is very important. Smart agriculture, let's say there's a nutrient deficiency, the plant is becoming low on nitrogen, on potassium or anything. So these sensors will help the farmers or the agriculturists know beforehand that this is happening. So they will not wait for visual symptoms to occur. They can simply rectify the problem in the initial stages only. So smart agriculture will be possible. And a modified human nature interaction. Modified human nature interaction is nothing but it's just like IoT. You have Internet of Things, right? Now Internet of Things, imagine plants being a part of that system in future, because right now this is in research stage, it is in development stage. But if everything comes out to be true in the near future, then there might also be a situation where we just touch plants and certain lights can be turned on, or anything can happen. So they can be connected to all these, because they will be connected to electrical devices, they will be connected to these computing devices. So these things can also happen. It will be a modified human plant interaction. But most importantly, it is going to help us in agriculture, in smart agriculture and environmental indicators. So this is what Cyborg botany will do. Okay, if you have any questions, please let me know. No, the material will not affect plants after settling down, and it's not exactly communicating with the vegetation in the wrong sense. It is actually about trying to protect the vegetation also, because as I already told you, many a times what happens that these symptoms appear once a lot of damage has already been done. Because of the deficiency, a lot of damage has already been done. So this is the way of plants telling us that something is wrong in the initial stages only. Okay. Yes, and to mitigate city heat, afforestation is the way to go, and making use of ACs and refrigerators in a judicious manner, energy efficient manner. These are certain things that can be done at an individual level. The government is also taking its steps at the policy level, but it's like a deadlock that I already mentioned, that it's like a trap, but we'll have to be we'll have to use things judiciously at our own individual level. Okay, let's move on to the next article. How can India embrace orange economy and transform creative assets to global IP? So this is about orange economy. Orange economy was given a lot of importance in this year's budget as well. So what is orange economy? Orange economy is also known as the creative economy. Creative economy, where simply we are turning ideas into assets. We are turning ideas into assets. Whatever idea we have, whatever vision we have about certain things, we are turning them into assets, meaning we are able to generate revenue out of that, we are able to generate profit out of that, we are able to establish our stronghold in those areas. And these also help us in cultural diplomacy. Cultural diplomacy. So we communicate through arts, right? All the countries, all the people, individuals, they communicate through different art forms. So this is also a part of global, this is also a part of orange economy, creative economy. This will help us establish our stronghold on the global platform and also help us in cultural diplomacy. So let's see what the article is saying. It has given us data, a lot of data on India's orange economy's current status. Where are we? What do we wish to achieve? What is the lacuna at the moment, and which are some important global players? Okay, so when we talk about global players, we have the US, UK and China actually leading. So what all is going to be covered in orange economy? You have content, digital content. you have arts, you have films, there are songs, there's also gaming. Gaming is also a very important, very big creative industry. So these are certain sectors that contribute. These are all idea driven, these are all intangible things driven, and they give rise to assets. They start turning into assets. And so it's like ideas, assets, and IP, intellectual property rights. Because once you have ideas, once they start turning into assets, we also need to protect them. They need to be given legal rights also, so that copyright infringement does not happen. People don't start stealing stuff and recognizing them as their own. So that's why IP rights is also a very important part of this network. This network is made up of ideas, assets, and IP. Okay, so if we talk about some data over here, it's not necessary to memorize everything, but just to give you an idea of how things are working. Media and entertainment sector is somewhere around 2.5 trillion rupees. Total output is some 3 lakh CR annually, which is expected to reach 50 billion soon. Okay, $50 billion soon. 10 million plus livelihoods are generated. It's very important to understand that this is a very important, very big actually employment generator sector also. A lot of employment is generated in this sector. 8% of the workforce currently is employed in creative economy, in orange economy. Gaming, again, one of the most important ones, 233 billion rupees. Animation and VFX, 103 billion rupees. And this, as I told you, it enhances India's cultural diplomacy. So we communicate through films, we communicate through songs. When these start getting featured on global platform, they start getting recognized on the global platforms, then this helps us in establishing strong cultural diplomatic ties also with different countries. However, we need to understand that while this is an upcoming sector, it's actually generating a lot of employment, but there is a lot more potential that needs to be done, because there's a huge gap between US, UK and China's creative economy and our creative economy. And we have the potential, we have a huge demographic dividend, right? So that there's a huge potential that the youth of India holds in this category. So there's a lot that needs to be done. So we need to first identify what is the gap. So what are the challenges? Challenges are weak IP monetization and licensing. Our IP platform or the IP network that we have, intellectual property network that we have, is not very strong. It's weak actually. There are weak enforcement rules. A lot of copyright infringement happens very easily. Piracy issues are so much. So even like big films and everything, a big ban of films, they can very easily be available on some pirated platforms. So these things, the IP network that we have is not very strong, and the licensing, global licensing network also that we have, it's also not very strong. It's not featured. Let's say a lot of our songs, a lot of our films, a lot of our different art form is not featured a lot in the global ads, in the global licenses, whereas the other artists that we have, they invest a lot in their branding, in their marketing, and in their global branding basically, that they get featured on ads, they get featured on these different parts, different things actually, whereas it's not so prevalent in India. So we have ideas definitely turn into assets, but when we talk about the IP part of it, the intellectual property part of it, we do not have very strong policies in that category, very strong IP policies, very strong licensing policies, and the reach is also limited in that category, in the global licensing category. Then there's a lot of financing gap also. There's a lot of financing gap that we have. Not every idea is able to turn into an asset. There's a lot of financing gap, particularly in the rural areas, in rural areas of the country. There are a lot of ideas. There are, there's a lot of budding, there's a lot of budding ideas there also. But the challenge is that finance becomes an issue. And every time we have a good idea, it's not able to be converted into an asset because of the finance challenges. Skill mismatch is also there. Skill mismatch meaning like gaming, VFX, animation. These are some high-skilled categories, high-skilled sectors of the orange economy, of the creative economy, and there also we see some skill mismatch. Like a lot of people are focusing on digital content creation, but there are not a lot of people compared to the digital content creation that we see moving into VFX or high animation or things of that sort. So these are also some areas that are highly skilled areas. They're very niche areas. A lot of training is required, a lot of certification is required in order to compete at the global level. So here we see a mismatch. And then we have the infrastructure gap. Again, it's about the digital divide. There is a digital divide, right? Infrastructure gap is also there. We don't have a lot of studios or creative hubs because it's budding at the moment. It is upcoming. So we don't have a lot of infrastructure to support this. And especially if we talk about rural areas, there's a lot of digital divide even now where people do not have access to internet or smartphones. And in those areas also, these things, the ideas that we see, they're not able to turn into assets because of the infrastructure gap, because of the digital divide gap. And even in the urban areas, there's still a lot of need to build these creative hubs, which is not very frequently present in the metro cities also. And in the other tier 1, tier 2 cities, this structure is even weaker. But even if we talk about metro cities, we don't see a lot of creative hubs. So this is upcoming, but these are certain things that we definitely need to work upon so that our demographic dividend can be utilized and we can compete with the global players like US, UK and China. Okay, so that was all for today's discussion. If there's anything, please let me know. All right. So that was all. Now let's look at a practice question for prelims. And this is in the service sector, orange economy. Okay, now before we talk about the prelims practice question, let me tell you that we have the Studio GS Foundation live online course. So this is a foundation course. Your prelims and main syllabus will be covered in 1250 plus hours of classes within 14 months. And you'll also have live chat facility during the classes. 3 mediums are available for you to choose from: English, Hindi and English. And you're getting all of this at 34,999 rupees. And if you wish to avail a further discount on this fee, then use the coupon code SALONI, all in capital letters only. Call us at 87501 for any more information and download the Drishti Learning app. Now let's look at the question for today. Cyborg botany, recently seen in the news, is related to A. Genetically modified plants to increase crop yield. B. Using plants as sources of biofuels. C. Integrating electronic components into plants to make them function as sensors or devices. D. Studying plant diseases using artificial intelligence. Choose the correct option. So it's a straightforward question. Please attempt it and provide your answers in the comment section. I will pin down the correct one. Thank you for watching.